Today, let's talk about rebranding. Hello, boys and girls of the internet. My name is Beard in Marketing. I'd like to welcome you to my platform. Feel free to agree or disagree with me politely in the comment sections. I'm so grateful for the love that you guys have been showing me lately. And yeah, let's jump into the thick of it. So today we're talking about rebranding. And when we're talking about rebranding, I think it's very important to first understand what rebranding is. Most people think about rebranding and the first thing they think of is a logo change, a change in the name of the company. But I also think that rebranding goes way beyond this. Rebranding also goes into, are you changing the messaging of the company? If you're changing the messaging, then I definitely think it's a rebrand of sorts. And when we're looking at this, I want us to highlight a few brands that, number one, have rebranded well. Not a few brands, actually we're just going to look at one brand. If we go to a few brands, this video will be too long. One, a brand that has rebranded well. Two, a brand that we tried to rebrand but then it didn't quite work out. And number three, a brand that is currently rebranding. So we won't look at it in that order. The first thing we will look at is number one, a brand that tried to rebrand but then it didn't work well. So for this example, I'd like to take you guys to the US. So in the US, there is a brand called Bud Light. So Bud Light is a beer brand, and it's known, the kind of people who drink Bud Light in the US are mostly conservative men. Now, conservatives are people who generally like values of family. They are not too liberal in their thoughts, I would say. So one of the things Bud Light was trying to do is it was trying to tap into a market, right? The market that they were looking at is a more liberal market. And so they decided to get a transgender influencer. Yeah. The name of the transgender influencer, I think, is Dylan. So they tried to get Dylan on board, which they were successful in. They actually got Dylan on board. When Dylan did their job, right, what happened is that there was a lot of backlash from the core base, right? Remember, the core base of the people who are actually using Bud Light are, conservative men in the US. Then you're bringing a transgender to push this brand. What happened? There was a lot of backlash. Consumers decided to, They decided to not buy Bud Light. The sales of Bud Light really tanked. Mind you, Bud Light is like the Tusker of the US. You know, the way Tusker is a big beer brand in Kenya, everyone loves it. Imagine that for the US. So that's an example of a brand that did not rebrand well. The reason why they did not rebrand well is, and I want you guys to take note of this, is when they were rebranding, they did not take into account how the current consumer base, which was huge, how would they feel about this messaging, right? So it's fine, it's good. You're trying to go for another consumer segment. But then when you're trying to go for this consumer segment, have you thought about your current consumer segment, the one which pays your bills right now? How would it feel about this messaging? So that, for me, would be example number one of a brand that tried to rebrand, but it didn't go too well. So Bud Light. A brand that rebranded and it went exceptionally well. This one will bring it home. I'd like to call to your attention Seth Gore. So Seth Gore started off as a comedian. He used to do a lot of skits. He used to be like, I think he was like one of the top viners in Kenya. Like Seth Gore is funny as fuck. We all know that he's really good at what he does. He's really good at being a comic, right? But then over the years, what we started seeing is that Seth Gore started doing more lifestyle content. And initially, we were a bit confused. We were like, what is this guy trying to do? One of the things that he did, and it was very smart, is that he did not stop creating his comical content. So his consumer base, the people who used to consume the content, still almost stayed on the Seth Gore page. So he used to create content, he used to create lifestyle content, but then he also is creating comical content. So lifestyle comical, and he's putting a mix of both of them. Right now, I would say he's the king of lifestyle. When Seth Gore started out, remember, he used to be the influencer for Gilbey's. Remember? Yeah. He used to be the influencer for Gilbey's. But then what the Gilbey's brand manager saw is, as this guy is premiumizing his content, to the Gilbey's consumer, he seems like he's out of reach. Remember that video that we did If you've not watched the previous video, make sure you watch it. You'll understand this bit. So the Gilbey's consumer looked at Seth Gore, is like, hey, Seth Gore is a little bit out of reach right now. So what did they decide to do? They gave him an even better, not a better brand, more expensive does not mean better, but they gave him a more premium brand. So Seth Gore, really good job in his rebrand. And one of the things that you'll notice that Seth Gore did very well in his rebrand is that he had a consumer base already, and he did not alienate that consumer base. He did not just move them from comical content all of a sudden to this lifestyle kind of content. It was a nice migration. It was a nice transition. He tried to take them on a journey. And even those consumers that he currently had, if like those consumers used to drink a lot of Gilbey's, right now they've uptraded. Now they're drinking a lot of Gordon's. You understand? Now, let's talk about a rebrand that is actually currently happening, and a lot of people are talking about it in the marketing field. That's the rebrand on Keringet. So there's a lot of mixed reactions. I am one of those people who's loving what Keringet is doing. I like that Keringet is actually taking very bold steps, and they're trying to actually build a Kenyan brand. And they've looked at what are the passion points that these Kenyan consumers have. They've established the passion points, and I think they're doing an incredible job trying to tap into those passion points. I think one of the passion points they've identified, and they've identified correctly, is fashion. I think Keringet is trying to position itself as a fashionable water brand, and that would appeal to a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Zs, who are, I would say this generation is a bit more fashion forward. So for me, I think Keringet has done a good job in that regard. They are positioning themselves as well as they want to position themselves as a premium. Obviously, they've spent a lot of money trying to get all these influencers to do content for them, and the kind of content that they're also pushing out, it's good content. Like, I genuinely like what they're doing. Now, my advice to Keringet, number one, would be to take into account these two lessons that we've learned from these two brands. How do you take your consumers on a journey? Because from my understanding, most of the people who are making noise about the transition on Keringet is that they feel like Keringet has premiumized. So, and it's premiumized very fast. Like, they're feeling, I think there's a consumer segment in Keringet that feels like they used to buy Keringet, but now they don't want to buy Keringet because they feel like, hey, Keringet is this super premium brand. You get what I'm saying? So I think that's one thing that Keringet needs to sort out is how do you transition the consumer? How does the consumer feel like they're part of this journey, of this rebrand, of what you guys are trying to do? That will be number one. But I love the work that you're doing. I like that you're bringing in proper brand building into the Kenyan scene, and you're doing it with water. Most people would say water is not an exciting brand, but you guys have managed to make it exciting. So well done. Yeah, so don't alienate your consumer base. That's the lesson we're learning from from Bud Light. And the lesson that we're learning from Seth Gore is that how do you take these consumers on a journey? Because if you alienate a key consumer base, you risk. So my advice to Keringet, look at these two brands and look at what they did wrong and right, and it speaks to the same thing. Number one, you have to take your consumers on a journey. How do you make that consumer feel like they're part of this rebrand? I think Seth Gore has done it very well, and they are a good case study. I think Bud Light alienated a consumer base, and they ended up tanking in terms of sales. So yeah, I think that's the thing. So even in premiumization, how do you make sure that your consumer base is almost up trading with you into this position that you want to get to? But yeah, I'm a big fan of the work that Keringet is doing. Yeah, and I hope they are successful in their rebrand. Because if they're successful in their rebrand, then the water scene also changes. More people will want to brand build, and the more brand building means that we have more Kenyan brands which are strong and which are, we know what they stand for. So boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me. This has been Beard and Marketing. Over and out.